They call it the passive phase. That's what Michelle called it. Anyway, she'd look at me, sipping my morning coffee, staring out at the rain-slicked Seattle streets, and her mouth would tighten, like I was some kind of exhibit in a museum dedicated to wasted potential. "You're too young to be this, still, Greg," she'd say, her voice vibrating with a restless energy that used to enthrall me but now just made my teeth ache. "You've stopped moving. People notice." I'd smile, take another sip. "I'm not still, Michelle. I'm just moving at a different frequency." She hated that answer. She hated that 12 years ago I'd taken CoreStream, the back-end infrastructure that powers half the e-commerce platforms you've used without knowing it, scaled it, sold it for $340 million, and quietly exited. No victory laps, no tech conference keynotes, just a clean break and a desire for a life with less static. Michelle loved the money. She loved the identity that came with being married to G. Lansing, the architect. When the G. Lansing brand retired, she felt her own value depreciate. She started looking elsewhere for that ego-fueling energy. And that's how Blake Patterson entered our lives. Blake was everything I wasn't anymore. Loud, perpetually performing, always on his way to disrupt something. He was the CEO of Velocity Hub, a startup promising to revolutionize online retail with AI-powered commerce solutions. Michelle was his head of marketing. It was a perfect match for her, all ambition and optics. Velocity Hub was the reason I was currently standing in a downtown Seattle office that screamed, "We're disrupting everything." Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, and enough expensive furniture to fund a small nation. Michelle had insisted I come to their annual company party. "It'll be good for you to get out," she'd said, which really meant, "I need you there so people know I'm still married, and you don't look completely pathetic." I stood in the corner, nursing a glass of 18-year-old single malt, watching my wife laugh at one of Blake's practice jokes. She touched his arm, leaning in close. The chemistry was there, vibrant and nauseating. I wasn't jealous. I was just tired. I was tired of the game. I was tired of being invisible. But most of all, I was tired of Blake Patterson, who was currently holding court, a champagne flute in one hand, gesturing wildly with the other. "We're not just iterating, folks," he boomed. "We're reimagining the entire architecture of digital commerce. Our platform, Velocity AI, it's alive. It learns. It processing transactions in ways the legacy dinosaurs can't even dream of." A ripple of polite applause went through the room. Blake caught my eye. He gave me a condescending nod, the kind you give to a child or a very old dog. "Greg," he called out, his voice a shade too loud. "Glad you could make it out of the house. Michelle says you've been enjoying the quiet." A few heads turned. Michelle's face was a mask of bright, brittle performance. "Just enjoying the passive phase, Blake," I said, my voice level. "Passive?" Blake laughed, a sharp, unhuman sound. "Well, someone's got to be, I suppose. Makes the rest of us look even faster." The joke landed, a soft murmur of amusement. I took another sip of my scotch and shifted my weight. That's when my building access badge tumbled out of my jacket pocket. It hit the polished marble floor with a sharp, echoing slap. Before I could move, Blake was there. He bent down with that practice, helpful smile he probably used on investors. He picked up the badge, glanced at it casually, and then froze. It wasn't a pause. It was a full system-wide crash. His eyes locked on the name embossed on the plastic. G. Lansing. Sentinel Properties. Owner access. His face went white. Not a figure of speech. He went actual, drain all the blood straight to his shoes white. His hand started to shake, and he looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen on him before. Fear. He stood slowly, holding the badge between two fingers like it might explode. The noise of the party seemed to fade into a background static. Blake's mouth opened, closed, open again. Then, in a voice so low only I could hear, he whispered, "Sir, does your wife know who you are?" I held his gaze. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable, a physical weight between us. Then I reached out, took the badge from his trembling hand, and slipped it back into my wallet. "She knows exactly who I am," I said quietly. "The question is, Do you realize you're standing in my building, using my code? Blake stepped back like I'd shoved him. His eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape, looking for Michelle, looking for anything that made sense. But nothing did anymore because in that moment, he realized he'd been playing a game on a board I owned. Raymond Colby, he said, the name a whisper of defeat. The architect. You built everything. Logistics. Read. Patterns. I built the architecture of modern commerce in a cramped apartment with coffee-stained notebooks. I scale things, I exit, and then I build a system to monitor the people who try to exploit the things I built. Everything is documented. I continued, my voice calm. March 2022. Michelle emailing you backend frameworks, technical specifications, database architecture diagrams. Subject line. This could be useful for reference. Your reply. This is gold. We can schedule a call? His phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times.
Checked mine.
Text from my private investigator. Blake's phone has gone dark, but he's making frantic calls. Looks like the panic is setting in. I pocketed the phone. I didn't sue you, Reed. I've been waiting. 8 months. Waiting for this moment. When you were at your most arrogant, your most public, your most convinced that you were the predator. The party rolled on, oblivious to the fact that the foundation of Velocity Hub was currently imploding in the corner. Michelle was laughing at something else, completely unaware that her restful API of secrets was about to be forcibly shut down. Blake stood there, his jaw locked, staring at me. He was thinking, calculating, trying to find a loophole, a way out. He wouldn't find one. I spent 8 months making sure of that. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my attorney, Douglas Farr. The papers have been served at Velocity Hub headquarters. Patent infringement, copyright violation, breach of contract, and a criminal referral for corporate espionage. The party is about to get interesting. It's just beginning, I said to Blake, letting the words settle. Ready to meet the G. Lansing you've been so patronizing to? The music in the lobby didn't stop, but for Blake, the air seemed to have run out. He was staring at me like I was a ghost that had suddenly developed the power to strangle him. Your Sentinel Properties? He stammered, his voice cracking. The LLC? The trust? That was you? I like layers, Blake, I said, leaning back against a marble pillar. In code and in real estate, it helps filter out the people who aren't paying attention. At that moment, Michelle glided over. She was glowing, her cheeks flushed with the high of being the power behind the throne. She hadn't noticed Blake's paralysis yet. She reached out and tucked a stray hair behind her ear, looking at me with that familiar mix of pity and annoyance. Greg, honey, you're hovering in the corner again, she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness for the benefit of the nearby investors. Blake, don't let him bore you with stories about the good old days of server rooms. Blake didn't laugh. He didn't even look at her. He was staring at the wallet in my hand as if it contained his death warrant. Michelle, Blake whispered, his eyes finally shifting to her. Did you know your husband owns this building? And the patent for our core logic? The silence that hit Michelle was physical. She froze, her champagne glass tilting dangerously. What? No, Greg's retired. He sold CoreStream years ago. He's just Gregory. I sold the company, Michelle, I said, my voice as cold as the ice in my glass. I never sold the foundational patents. I licensed them back to myself through Sentinel. And I certainly never gave you permission to BCC my private architecture to your boss's personal Gmail. Michelle's face went from confusion to a ghostly, translucent pale. She looked at me, then at Blake, then back at me. The realization that the passive man she'd been mocking was actually the architect of her lover's success, and his impending ruin, hit her like a high-speed train. Greg, I was just trying to help the company, she started, her voice rising in a frantic pitch. Blake said they needed a reference point, something to bridge the gap. You handed him the keys to the vault because you wanted to feel like a player, I interrupted. You wanted to be the woman who built Velocity Hub, but you didn't build it. You shoplifted it from our marriage. Suddenly, the heavy glass doors of the lobby swung open. 2 men in dark suits, carrying leather briefcases, walked in with the unmistakable stride of process servers. They didn't look at the bar or the appetizers. They walked straight to Blake. "Blake Patterson?" one of them asked. Blake nodded dumbly. He took the envelope they handed him. As he opened it, I saw his hands trembling so violently that the paper rattled. "What is this?" Michelle asked, reaching for the papers. "It's an injunction," I answered for him. "As of 5 minutes ago, Velocity Hub is legally barred from using any AI-powered logic that utilizes CoreStream architecture, which, according to my audit, is 94% of your platform. It also includes a freeze on all company assets pending a full investigation into corporate espionage." The room began to go quiet as people noticed the scene. The investors, the disruptors, the tech journalists, they all turned. "Greg, please," Michelle hissed, grabbing my arm. "Our son Liam works here. You're destroying his career too. Think about the family." I looked down at her hand on my sleeve and then up at her eyes. "I am thinking about the family, Michelle. I'm thinking about the daughter whose trust fund you tried to reinvest into this fraud. I'm thinking about Liam, who I've already secured a senior position for at a firm that actually writes its own code." I turned back to Blake, who looked like he was about to collapse. "You have 24 hours to vacate my building, Blake. My lawyers will discuss the settlement for the stolen IP. It will be for exactly the amount of your Series B funding. Every penny. You'll kill the company," Blake whispered. "No," I corrected him. "I'm just reclaiming the code. The company was never alive to begin with. It was just a puppet wearing my skin." I finished my scotch and set the glass on a passing waiter's tray. I looked at Michelle one last time, the woman who had traded 26 years of loyalty for the thrill of being near a moving man. "I'm going home now, Michelle. I've already had your things moved to the guest house. We can discuss the divorce through Sentinel's legal team. They're very efficient. They move much faster than I do." I walked out of the building, the cool Seattle air hitting my face. Behind me, the party was finally over. The music had stopped, the lights felt too bright, and for the first time in 5 years, the silence didn't feel passive. It felt like peace.as. I pulled my car out of the lot. I glanced at the top floor of the building, the floor that housed Velocity Hub. The lights were flickering out one by one. I had built that empire, and tonight I had turned off the lights.